Welcome to This Explainer. Let's dive right into something you're probably dealing with at home right now. The hidden distress your teenage daughter might be experiencing on social media, and crucially, how you can actually help. We all see our kids glued to their screens, right? But what is really happening beneath the surface? Today, we're unpacking the hard data and direct feedback from teen girls themselves to understand the massive psychological weight of their digital worlds.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start by recognizing the signs of digital distress, define what knack actually is, and map out the downward comparison spiral. Then we'll talk about flipping envy into inspiration, the real power of mindfulness, and exactly how you as parents can help.
Okay, Section 1. Recognizing digital distress and the observable signals right in your home.
Let's talk about what this actually looks like. If your daughter is suddenly retreating to her room after a perfectly fine day, if you see her mood just tank while she's scrolling, or she's suddenly obsessed with how everyone looks perfect, please pay attention. You might even notice drastic changes in how she eats or exercises, an outright refusal to be in family photos, or hours spent taking and tweaking selfies. Look, these aren't just typical moody teenage phases. These are flashing warning signs of digital dysmorphia. Constant comparison is magnifying her insecurities, literally making her obsess over tiny flaws that nobody else even sees.
The psychological shift here is honestly jarring. A teen who is vibrant, multidimensional, and totally confident in the real world can suddenly feel incredibly boxed in and anxious the second she opens Instagram. This ties directly into the triple conscious theory. She's no longer just experiencing her own life. She's constantly viewing herself through the critical, unforgiving eyes of an imagined digital audience. The platform pulls her into this intense, overthinking state where she feels totally alone and hypercritical of her own reflection.
Moving on to Section 2. What is NAC? Let's name this hidden pressure.
NAC stands for Negative Appearance Comparison, and it is the exact engine driving all of this digital distress. Simply put, it's that horrible feeling of feeling worse about your own looks or your body after repeatedly comparing yourself to filtered, idealized, or totally unattainable images online. It isn't just a passing, fleeting thought. It is an exhausting, chronic pressure to measure up to an impossible standard.
And if you're wondering how common this is, well, just look at the numbers. Nearly half, 48% of all teen girls report that they often or always compare their appearances on Instagram. Think about that. Basically, every other time they open the app, they are actively measuring their own self-worth against someone else's carefully curated highlight reel.
And the fallout is very real. For 1 in 3 teen girls, Instagram acts as a direct hit to their self-esteem. It actively makes them feel worse about their bodies. So we're not talking about a fringe issue affecting a small handful of kids here. This is a massive, systemic challenge that a huge portion of our youth is navigating every single day.
Section 3. The downward comparison spiral, and how the algorithm actually amplifies this anxiety.
So how does the spiral happen? Well, social comparison actually mimics the grief cycle. It almost always starts with a pre-existing bad mood. A tough day at school, or maybe a fight with a friend. Then comes the exposure to these completely unattainable standards. But instead of distracting her from that bad mood, the platform amplifies it. This triggers a rapid, downward emotional spiral. She goes straight from jealousy to self-doubt, which ultimately leads to a massive spike in anxiety and body dysmorphia. It's a vicious, relentless feedback loop.
So what exactly is she comparing herself to? The data points to a specific trifecta of comparison triggers: body standards, flawless skin, and fashion. Now, unattainable celebrity standards are bad, sure, but you know what's actually worse? The middle-rung friendships. These are peers who are close enough to have a real emotional impact, but just far enough away that your teen has absolutely no idea about their real-life struggles. Throw in the no-filter lie, which is when people claim natural beauty while secretly using algorithms to touch up their faces, and it creates a profoundly dishonest and isolating environment. It's a standard she literally cannot meet.
Just listen to how one teenage girl perfectly captures this sheer exhaustion. She says, "You can't ever win on social media. It's endless, and you just end up feeling worthless and shitty about yourself." That's incredibly powerful, right? It highlights the immense psychological strain of chronic comparison. The goalposts are constantly moving, and the only prize is a diminished sense of self-worth.
All right, Section 4. Flipping envy into inspiration and changing the digital narrative. Because there is good news here. We can absolutely shift this dynamic. Look, certain design features and content types breed envy, usually through dishonesty, a lack of real-world context, and a weird hyperfixation on specific body parts. But we can trigger inspiration instead when we highlight attainability. When a feed is curated to show vulnerability, the hard work, or the messy journey behind a post, rather than just a flawless airbrushed outcome, it completely flips the switch. We want to emphasize value beyond just physical looks.
As one 16-year-old girl brilliantly put it, replacing the no-filter lie with radical authenticity is the key to breaking the cycle. She told researchers, "What changes things and inspires me is when people show their flaws, they're vulnerable, like they're stretch marks, because everyone's going through stuff." That relatability is absolutely everything. It reminds your daughter that everyone is human, and everyone is dealing with something real behind the screen.
Let's get into Section 5, the power of mindfulness, and how to actually break this cycle of comparison. So how do mindfulness breaks replace learned helplessness with actual control? When teens are caught in that scrolling spiral, they often feel entirely out of control of their own emotions. Let's look at how a deliberate pause shifts the power dynamic right back to your child.
By simply stepping away, putting the phone down, and taking a mindful pause, they build a critical defense mechanism. It forces a moment of reflection that completely separates the app from reality. It's a vital reminder that social media is supposed to be a creative outlet, a fun highlight reel, absolutely not a scoreboard for human value. This simple break helps them realize, hey, I have the immediate power to change my thought patterns and regain my sense of reality.
Finally, Section 6, how parents can help. These are actionable steps to protect your teen right now. Here is your action plan. First, reduce her exposure. Empower her to ruthlessly mute or unfollow any accounts that trigger that downward spiral. Next, help her reframe comparison by having super open, honest conversations about the highlight reel nature of these apps. Promote media literacy. Sit down together and show her exactly how hidden filters and algorithms manipulate what she's seeing. Encourage her to journal daily, totally offline, to focus on her unique strengths and talents. And lastly, help her seek out positive role models. Curate a feed full of vulnerable, authentic creators who show the real journey, not just the destination.
And please, remember this absolutely vital takeaway from the research. Chronic comparison creates psychological strain, not motivation. Exposing teens to totally unrealistic beauty standards doesn't motivate them to be better or healthier. It literally just erodes their self-esteem. We really need to stop thinking that tough comparisons build character, because they don't. They just build anxiety.
So, I want to leave you with this one crucial question to spark some real conversation in your home today. What steps will you take today to help your daughter curate an online world that celebrates her authenticity rather than criticizing her reality? By understanding how negative appearance comparison works, you have the power to help her reclaim her brilliant multidimensional self. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to start this conversation with your daughter tonight.